Peter Kirkham is a former Metropolitan Police officer. Peter, very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
You've been sitting patiently through all this, but it's important to set the tone here and the story, put it in perspective. Peter, look, we have a situation today where you've got the National Audit Office pointing fingers at the Home Office. You've got the police, one of the Police and Crime Commissioners saying it's not the Home Office, it's the Treasury. You've got the Metropolitan Police Commissioner blaming the government. It's just becoming a farce.
The fault is clear. The person behind it is clear. It's Theresa May. She was Home Secretary from 2010 until a couple of years ago, and now she's Prime Minister. And the Home Secretaries that have replaced her are still doing her bidding for the simple reason that if they reverse what she did, it will show up the utter shambles of what she did to policing in her time, and she is now continuing that. She hates the police for some reason.
Why do you say that?
Nastily.
Why do you say
nastily? Look at how she harangued the Police Federation 2 or 3 years running a few years ago at the Federation conference. That wasn't just saying, I'm terribly sorry, it's austerity, we've got to cut, everybody's got to take a bit of pain. That was her nastily telling the police service, shape up or I'm going to shape you up. I don't know why, but it's patently obvious and has been for some time that she just dislikes the police. And unfortunately, the public are paying the price for that. They're paying increased council tax to pay again for the police that they pay through ordinary taxation. They've not had a rebate for the money they pay for policing. It's just not being spent on policing. And they're now being forced to pay again through the precept on council tax.
Peter, I've got to challenge you, if you don't mind. Look, in 2010, in 2008 we had the financial crisis, of course, but in 2010, as Home Secretary, Theresa May was given a task to reduce her budgets. It may have been forced upon her by the Treasury. Okay, so she had to make cuts to policing, as many government departments had to at that time.
And the police service at all levels turned around and said, we'll do our best to help you out. And yes, we can take about 12% without it's affecting policing services. It will obviously have some impact, but we should be able to reasonably deal with that.
Okay, Peter, what is the reality today? Because people will have their own interpretation of what the local police is. And this isn't a conversation. I don't want to turn this into a conversation about... we can't have a go at police officers. I know they're trying to do the best job they can, given some really tight restrictions. But what is actually happening?
What's happening is there are no police officers to do anything properly. Your chief, John Boucher, was one of the first to come out and say that. He was on the front page of one of your local papers probably about a year ago now, saying that he couldn't keep the people of Bedfordshire safe. Since then, about half a dozen others have come out to a greater or lesser extent. Today, we've heard Cressida Dick at the Superintendents Association in her diplomatic and measured tones, knowing her a little bit and looking at her body language, she's not happy. And they're all saying the same thing. We've all been saying the same thing. The Federation, the Superintendents Association have come out a bit louder this week, but they said the same thing a year ago. Everybody's been saying the same thing. Okay. And we were just dismissed as crime wolf. We weren't crime wolf, and the National Audit Office has just pointed that out.
Peter, what about the current incumbent at the Home Office? Is there not some hope that Sajid Javid might try and do something to restore the balance?
He's certainly got a different approach. He's not nasty to the police. He says he's listening and, he accepts quite a lot of the points that are being made. He's doing some of the things that don't involve spending money that needed to be done, but out of the list of things to be done, getting police officers back on the streets is important. If you dial 999, you need police officers to come and respond to that call. If you report a crime, you need police officers to investigate that. Yes, we can use IT and we can use technology and we can use all the other things to assist in that, but you still need police officers.
But we're never,
for most
Peter,
cyber-based crimes, someone has to kick the door in and nick them.
But we will never have the funds we truly need in the sort of in a utopian world to fund the police, the NHS, and education the way we want. What is the balance we are looking for here?
The only alternative then is for the public to be told that is no longer provided as a service. And we are seeing the private sector moving in with things like My Local Bobby and various other schemes that tend to be flash in the pan, asking people to pay extra to have patrols in their area to make them feel safe. Personally, I think that is an absolute dereliction of duty by the state. The keeping of people safe in public space is second only to national security and keeping us safe from invasion. And yet this government or 3 successive Tory-led governments have utterly failed in that, and that is why there is serious crime on the street.
Peter, help me out here. This is the bit I don't understand, because it does come down to politics. Law and order is supposed to be a strong point for the Conservatives. They're supposed to be good at this.
It used to be. They're now the party of crime and disorder. They couldn't have done more for crime if they'd been paid by organised crime. In fact, it's getting to the point where I think someone should actually have a look.
And your colleagues who are still serving, I know I've spoken to John Boucher, he's told me on the record and off the record how concerned he is. In particular, knife crime is a big issue for him. But do you have friends, colleagues who are still serving, Peter, who share your frustrations?
I speak to them every single day. Officers are going sick through the stress that this brings on, and from the workloads and from the fact they know they are not doing anything properly, and that they are carrying risk that when it all goes horribly wrong, someone will come along, probably from the HMIC or the IOPC, both of which were set up and sorted by Theresa May to attack the police and to regulate the police. And they will just blame that officer and take no notice whatsoever about the context of extreme workloads. They're going sick with stress. They're leaving in mid-service because they and their families can't cope with it anymore, taking vital experience with them. Of the police we've got left, the age profile in terms of service is dropping drastically. The vast majority of officers on the streets, and that's at sergeant level as well, now is going to be in single figures of service. So they're not only fewer of them, they are less experienced, they are less supported, there's less supervision. The whole thing is collapsing. We have been saying this will happen for several years, 5, 6, 7 years. We have not been listened. We've been dismissed as crying wolf. We weren't. We were pointing out this is happening. We are now saying it is in collapse. Something needs to be done today. And Sajid Javid, unfortunately, said, I'm listening. I'm going to argue your case in the spending review, which starts next year. And then, obviously it will take a year or two to work through. Meanwhile, cuts are continuing. Do
you mind me interrupting? Because, the Police and Crime Commissioner in Bedfordshire says it's not the Home Office, it's the Treasury. And she's pointed out today the Policing Minister, Nick Hurd, is making his 3rd visit to Bedfordshire. Well, whatever visit he's making, he ain't doing much about it.
Again, like Sajid Javid, he says a lot of stuff, but he does very little. I understand today he's dismissed the National Audit Office report as out of date. Well, the only reason it's out of date is things are now worse than it says in that report.
Peter, thank you.